All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the London Small Business Center celebrating and saluting small business. My name is Phil Singeris, and I am a business advisor at the Small Business Center. And, this is Small Business Week, and we're here to celebrate small businesses all across our community. And today we're focusing on our sector of businesses within the construction trades sector and industry. We've run a program. We started a program here at the Small Business Center just over a year ago called the Scale Up for the Construction Trades Industry. And it was a program designed to help businesses in this sector to provide assistance, funding, and training for growth for these businesses and these individuals to grow and scale up their businesses. And with me today are three of our successful participants in this program, and I'd like to introduce them, and then I'll ask them to basically give us a little bit of a background on their business and themselves, and then we'll go into some discussion and some dialogue about small businesses and your journey in entrepreneurship. So that's really what we would like to share with all the viewers today, is just to share that being an entrepreneur, to being a business owner is not an easy task, and to share the challenges that some of these clients have overcome, and the resources that is out there to support them. So first, I'd like to introduce Matt Taker from Caribou Building. Matt, you want to give a wave? Hey, thank you.
How's it going?
And then Ron Funnel from Unfinished Business. Ron, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Grace and Matt Stelpstra from Ontario Deck Railing Limited. Grace and Matt, thank you for joining us here today. So, listen, first thing I'd like to do is give you an opportunity just to tell us a little bit about your business, and tell us what motivated you to start your business, and how long you've been in business. So Matt, I'll start with you.
Okay, so I run Caribou Building. We do residential construction, basically anything from flooring, basements, additions, trim work, all that fun stuff. And we've been in business for a little over a year and a half now, but it's been a little bit longer than that, kind of before everything went legit. And then and there's 6 employees at the moment. So
6 employees. All right. So a year and a half. Great. Ron, how about you?
So Unfinished Business is essentially the projects that a company of Matt's size doesn't necessarily take on. Like my business name, Unfinished Business, I take care of those projects that people just don't have time to take care of. Started the company about a year and a half ago, and things have been going very well.
Okay. Thanks, Ron. And Grace and Matt, tell us a little bit about Ontario Deck Railing.
Ontario Deck Railing, we basically sell and install aluminum and glass railing. We have been in business for this is our 3rd year essentially. And this has been a great year for us, surprisingly. And it's a small family business. So my husband and we are partners with my in-laws, and together we build the business.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. So let me let's have a little bit of discussion. And first thing I forgot to mention to our viewers out there, this is a fantastic platform that we're broadcasting on. We are broadcasting this discussion over YouTube and on Facebook Live as well. So we've got a number of viewers on Facebook and a number of viewers on YouTube as well. Hello to everybody out there. Thank you for joining us. And we hope you learn a little bit about entrepreneurship in our construction trades program today. So Ron, let me ask you a little bit about, why did you want to be your own boss? Why did you want to become an entrepreneur?
I really like the idea of being an entrepreneur. I really like to control my destiny. I worked in the corporate sector for almost 3 decades, and decided that it was time to combine my passion for renovations and repair work to being in charge of my own destiny. And that's exactly what it's been for the last year and a half. What you put into it is exactly what you get back out of it.
Okay. Matt, let me ask you, what did you learn about yourself early on? And from think about back to those early days when it was just you. And I know now you've got 5 employees. And what did you learn about yourself early on that you didn't know?
That I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and just, maybe a little bit of a people pleaser sometimes. So sometimes those things go hand in hand and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So how about you, Grace? What did you learn about yourself in the early years and early stages?
I think what I learned is that I actually can do this. I think initially when we started, we were quite afraid of making huge mistakes or just walking blindly and not knowing what we were doing. But as we just went ahead and continued running the business, it didn't feel as scary as it did initially. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we learned, that we can actually do this. It's not so scary.
Was there one particular moment where you realized that I can do this, as to just being that navigating into the blind sort of world of unknown?
Not exactly. It's as customers began to come, we were like, we're getting more traction and therefore more work. And so you need more organization. Everything is more. They're basically all these pools are coming at you, but then you just take them one at a time. And so then all the scary things that you imagine, at least I imagine them, were not so scary, because really there is grace for the growth. It can be natural growth, or it can be this like one big growth that comes and then you feel like you're drowning and you don't know what you're doing, but then there comes a community around you somehow that also supports you. And so for me, it has been just one step at a time, moving forward, making those decisions. If we made mistakes, we step back, relook at it, and go, how can we do this differently? Or how can we do this better?
Yeah.
We keep on moving forward, essentially.
Yeah. I think you've said something really important there that's a key to being successful, and it's just staying organized, right? You'll find, as many entrepreneurs and many people beginning their businesses and starting, I mean, you're wearing many hats, right? You're wearing all the hats. As I say, you're the executive chef and you're the dishwasher and bottle washer. You're doing everything, and you're doing tasks that you never thought you would do, and that could be bookkeeping or accounting or social media, web developing. Until you can afford to pay somebody to do this for you, perhaps you have a friend or a family member that's providing assistance or guidance. But organization is certainly critical to the success of a business. Matt, you had mentioned that as well, staying organized. What did you do, or what do you continually do to stay organized, especially now that you've got a staff of 5 or 6 people?
Yeah. So basically everything's just a lot of spreadsheets. So I can kind of track like all our jobs at once, and then, schedule over here and each job in there. We have, like a couple whiteboards that we can schedule like all our tasks and where the guys are going every day. And that's a task in and of itself. So,
and that's something I'm sure you're just continually revisiting too, right?
Constantly.
Daily and hourly or whatever. And there's probably so many variables thrown at you. A supplier didn't come through with the products that you needed on the right day, or there was a delivery issue. Perhaps there was an HR issue or some other stuff. I mean, that's probably one of the strengths of being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, is being able to adapt, right? Those kind of things. Yep. So, Ron, how about you? How do you stay organized and on task?
Well, I've always been a bit of a chameleon, and I come from an organized background, so that certainly was an advantage. Developing a relationship with the Small Business Center was a huge asset. As a standalone independent business operator, you feel like you're on your own until you have that opportunity. And so that made a big difference, because a lot of the tools available from the Small Business Center are tools that I use now on a regular basis. And it's critical to the details. You can be a phenomenal tradesperson, but if you do not have a good system of organization, you're dead in the water. And, as you just mentioned, there can be delays in product, which we've all faced this summer because of COVID. There's lots of material shortages, and you have to plan ahead. You have to be able to, adjust the schedule. You have to communicate continually with your customers. Hey, I've got an opening, and I've got an opening because there's a material shortage, but I can come over and take care of your project at the end of the week. Great, let's do it. Let's get it done. And if you don't have that planned approach, then you're going to find yourself sitting in front of the calendar going, okay, what am I supposed to be doing right now? And you shouldn't be operating that way. In a recent discussion with Phil, I shared with you, Phil, that I'm now booking into 2021. And 6-8 months ago, that wasn't the case. I was just tracking ahead, getting the next month. And I think that everyone is experiencing that as we become more organized, in this environment.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Ron. So that brings me to the next point. So think about, Ron, you mentioned that a lot of support from the Small Business Center, and thank you for the kind words. And this is what we do at the Small Business Center. We support entrepreneurs in this specific industry in construction and trades. First question, let me throw this out there to Grace. What brought you to the Small Business Center, particularly for this program? I guess when you first reached out to the Small Business Center, had you been in contact with the Small Business Center before? Was there something specific that you were looking for? And what other resources or benefits of your relationship with the Small Business Center have you gained from?
When we first got in touch with the Small Business Center, it was really through our relationship with our banker, because they directed us to you for the trade workshop. And so that was our first encounter with you. And at that point, we really didn't have any support. It was just us. And I personally felt quite lonely, even though there are 4 of us, but you still feel kind of lonely because we're all new in this world of business. And so it was literally learning everything from scratch. We were like beginners in the business world. And so we felt like going to the Small Business Center would be helpful to us, except we didn't know how it would be at that point, because we're quite resourceful people as well. And so we tend to be quite independent in how we do our research and finding resources and all of that. But the opportunity to do the seminar with you this year for the grant, it was fantastic, because it gave us an opportunity to build a relationship with you, because I think it really helps to have a face from the Small Business Center for us to connect with regularly. I'm that kind of person, so I needed that consistent face person to go to and say, hey, this is what I need. Can you help me with this? Otherwise, I guess you feel like you have to tell your story over and over again. It's quite tiring. And so it was really helpful to have you. And what was even better was that you actually champion us. And so you have supported us in many ways, and having that relationship built with you meant that right now, if we needed anything, we can go, Phil, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you please point me somewhere? And so like for us, we are considering hiring next year. And so we've been talking to you about it, and that has been helpful. And so it's given us something to think about and plan towards for next year.
All right. Well, thank you for kind words, and I've, it's certainly the feelings are mutual. It's been quite enjoyable working with you and all of them. But gives me a great segue into, you commented the first your banker had referred you to us in the Small Business Center, and then you attended one of our seminars, which is a great first step for people in this industry. And as I mentioned earlier on, we are offering this program, Scale Up Construction Trades, again in early 2021. We are continually offering 2 different webinars. I mean, back then when Grace and Ron and Matt and many of them attended, it was in-person seminars. Now they're all online webinars. We have one called, it's called The Nuts and Bolts of Starting and Launching a Construction Business. And we have a webinar coming up on October 27th of this month. I believe it's at 5 or 5:30. And then another one we've got is titled Navigating the Regulatory Compliance in the Construction Trades Industry. And that one is coming up on, I believe, in November 24th. And we'll be running them again in early January and February. So if anyone out there is listening and has an interest, I mean, all of this information is posted on our website, sbcenter.ca. I would encourage you to reach out and register for them. There's no charge to attend these webinars, and they're very informational and very resourceful. So I'm going to go to a question. We're taking a lot of questions live through YouTube and Facebook. One of the first questions I've got says, the construction industry is one that thrives on referrals. What are the key elements in achieving referrals? So Matt, why don't I put that one over to you first to see what are the key elements achieving referrals?
Yeah. So basically doing the best work that you possibly can, given, I mean, obviously the budget, but you have to do the best work possible, and you have to just have a decent rapport with your customer. Like if you're, constantly late, or, you don't show up for a couple of days, don't tell anybody, like it's not going to go well. So just being like professional and doing good work, the referrals will come.
And at the end of a job, when a job is complete with a customer, Matt, do you ask for a referral, a direct request, or is it a soft request, perhaps in an email later, or here's some business cards, or or maybe you don't even have a set procedure?
Yeah, I don't have a set procedure for when we finish up. Definitely giving out business cards for sure. Like that's just like a constant thing. But maybe like, hey, if you need anything else, like give us a call. I've never done the hard one, like the hard ask where you ask for the referral, but fortunately, I guess I haven't had to.
And I mean, you said something very valuable there earlier, Matt, is that it's all about relationships, right? Business is about relationships with your customers. And you do a great job on someone's kitchen, bathroom renovation, whatever. Their friends and families or friends and family are going to be coming over, and seeing all this new stuff and who did it, and this is great, and I'm thinking about doing it. So those are those sort of soft referrals and things like that. But again, that relationship and ensuring that the customer, the communication between your business and the client is paramount and at the forefront of everything you do. And we've heard, there's lots of, I don't want to say horror stories, but negative stories of business construction tradespeople that fail on that mark, right? And have left people high and dry, and that's unfortunate. So if you can set yourself apart from that, you're doing well. Ron, how about you? What do you think your key elements for achieving referrals?
I have asked for the referrals after completion of a project. In many cases, it was doing the setup of my Facebook page, starting to get things prepared for my website. Everyone that I've asked for a referral has been prepared to do one, which is obviously the reaction that you want at the end of it. I also have Google My Business, so I have Google reviews that are starting to come in now. The first one was totally unsolicited, which was a really, really nice positive review. Reviews cannot be underestimated because everyone can see those reviews, whether it's online or it's, a verbal review from someone else, a referral. So much like what Matt has said and what Grace has said as well. Be transparent, be on time, do a good job. One of the things that I always talk about, and I've talked about this in past discussions, know your limitations. I have people that ask me about work all the time that is not really in my scope, and I'll make a recommendation. In fact, Matt and I have recommended business back and forth for that very reason. It doesn't mean we always get the business, but I think people appreciate that honesty. I know what my limitations are. I know what I legally can do. And I know what my strengths are. And I also know what the strengths are of so many other businesses in London. And while this is not related to the referral question, networking cannot be underestimated. We've networked a few times through the Scale Up program, just looking for advice and different things like that. So.
Okay. All right, let me go. We got a bunch of questions coming in on the comments here too. So, Grace, I'm going to go over to you, and got a question from Ann on Facebook here. How do you market each of your businesses? So, how do you market your business? I mean, referrals is obviously one part of marketing, but what marketing activities do you undertake regularly to gain clients or new clients?
So very early on, we build our website. So before we even started, we built our website right away, just to make sure that if anybody searches for aluminum railing, there's some sort of a hit. And so as time went by, we naturally crawled to the top of the search without actually spending money on ads. And so I think that's one of the things that we did. And then we also do Instagram and Facebook. I really am not great at it, but it has helped us as well. And so I would say, if you feel intimidated, don't. Just do what you can. Put your name out there. We have had, this year especially, we have heard so many customers comment on pictures on our website, that our website's great, and that they have seen us on Instagram. I don't do a lot. I do about one a week, essentially, and I link that to my Facebook. And so I try to do it. There's so many things to do. There's so many things that we have to cover. Like Matt does the installation and the operation side, and I cover the office side of things. And then with our baby now, my brain is a little bit like squished, and so I can only do that much. And so, but what I've built so far is that all I need to do is put one Instagram post per week. So I get him and his dad, when they go out for installation, to make sure that they take photos. If they remember, a before photo. If they don't, at least an after photo. So then I can at least put that on Instagram. And so be prepared to do something small, but that small thing builds up. And so that's how we have kind of advertised. And really, we've had also a lot of referrals this year from our previous customers. They've sent their friends, their family. They're like, oh, my daughter-in-law's whatever parents want to get some railing. Can you quote? We're like, sure. So it's really word of mouth that's going out there, and it takes time to build it. We're now in our third year. We're finally seeing more and more of that happening. And like what Matt said, Matt and Ron both said, you really need to give your best. If you don't do the best work, then your customer's not going to be happy. And the rapport with the customer really helps as well, because if you're friendly and you're real, you're honest, you're integrous, you know your limitations, that really, and you communicate all of that instead of keeping it in your mind, thinking that the customer can read your mind. They can't. But you just continuously communicate with them. That helps to build trust in your business and in the relationship that you have. And so they start sending their friends and family to you. So that's how we haven't paid for any advertising or any marketing, except for one. I suppose we tried one this year doing the Canada Post mail out. And I don't know, I still prefer the conventional like Facebook, Instagram way so far.
So you haven't bought any paid advertising on Instagram or Facebook at all? It's all just through it's your posts, which basically it costs no money, but it's your time. So and you know, I think you had a great message there. You know, it's not something that you really knew a lot about going in, and it's not something you particularly enjoy, but you stayed at it. And I always, when I meet with clients all the time, I'm talking about social media and utilizing it is yeah, you're going to make mistakes. You might buy some advertising with and not have set the filters right. And I know, Ron, you're nodding your head. I know you do a number of that sort of stuff, and I'll get to you in a second. But you know, and we talked earlier. Someone had mentioned about failing, and I think Grace had said earlier about one of your fears was failing and not knowing what you were doing and all that kind of stuff. And listen, I've never met a perfect entrepreneur. I've never met somebody who hasn't made a mistake or hasn't failed, and there's no shame in that. The best thing you can do for yourself and your business is to learn from it and not to repeat that mistake. And and that same can be true through marketing for your business and all other aspects of your business. So, Ron, I know you're nodding your head. I know you do a lot of marketing on social media. Share with us a little bit of some of your successes and some of the tactics you use.
So much like Grace and even Matt, social media is not my first forte. It's it's still a little bit foreign, despite the fact that I worked in the advertising industry for 3 decades. My fiance is actually the one that takes care of my social media. And over the weekend, we had a conversation about the importance of marketing social media and actually developing a better plan. So we actually are laying out an 18-month plan of how we'll market Unfinished Business through Facebook and through some other platforms. But much like Grace, I've done different posts. We've boosted different posts. More so pre-COVID. Once things started to change with COVID into the second term of the year, we pulled back a little bit. And to be quite honest, it wasn't necessary to be aggressively marketing. I have a concern with trying to please everyone. And, the business is at a point right now where I can't take anything on. So it's a little bit silly to be aggressively marketing. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have its place. I have jackets coming, I have hats coming, I have shirts coming, because those are all part of the brand. Those are all part of, marketing the business. My truck is about to get logoed in the next week or so. So things like that, they're all really important. I know one of the questions that I can see coming up is, how do you market your business cost effectively? And I'll say this, as someone who worked in the advertising industry, if I was launching this business 10 or 15 years ago, my choices would have been a lot more limited in terms of how I could market through social media, because the platform wasn't as advanced as it is today. And if you look at traditional media, television, print, radio, very costly to advertise in those platforms. So you don't want to make a mistake when you make a commitment to a traditional platform. And conversely, it's a lot more cost effective to do a post boost on Facebook than it is to call up the TV station saying, I'd like to buy the 6 o'clock news for the next month, which would take your entire budget for a year or two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, how about you? Tell us a little bit about how you market your business and social media and branding, those kind of things.
Yeah, so we've done a few posts. I mean, we're kind of getting better at it now, but basically, yeah, all the jobs that we do, that we complete, and that we're really like, they end up on the social media. Like, we'll do a post, which we try to do about once a week. It's fallen off a little bit recently just because we're trying to kind of in between finishing some stuff up and waiting for the finishing photos that are the eye candy, if you will. But yeah, and then other than that, like, most of it is just like we have some signs and we have some just like street signs, and
yeah, you've got the lawn signs and other signs. I've seen them up.
Yeah, and then it's just like word of mouth, really.
Yeah.
But, yep.
Okay. All right. Well, listen. We got some more questions coming here. Ann says, "Bingo, Ron." There you go. So thanks, Ann, for that comment. I got a question here from Paul on Facebook saying, I often find I'm spending too much time in front of a computer logging, estimating, communicating with clients, prospects, etc. With estimating taking up a huge chunk of that time, have you found proficient ways to quickly and accurately estimate or quote a job? So Matt, why don't I go to you on this one? I'll start with you. This is certainly applicable to all of you and very important. But Matt?
Yeah. So honestly, like I just literally just break it down in as to small as you can really get. So depending on what you're doing, like let's say it's a basement. So if you were to go in with, say, that you know that it's a basement, then you know, okay, they're probably going to want walls and drywall. And like I have a spreadsheet that I can quickly reference, and I'm 95% getting it there to where I can just use that solely, so that I'm not kind of doing a double entry. But basically, yeah, it's got everything in there that I would possibly need, so that I can literally just go through the list on the spreadsheet and just click, one of these, 10 of these. I can enter the square footage, and it automatically calculates how many studs or how much flooring I'll need, the cost that gets associated, how much labor that's going to be in it. Like literally, all I'm just typing in is just square footages, lineal footages, and just.
Now, this is something you've developed yourself, right?
Yeah, a few hours. Let's say that.
Yeah. But it's keeping you on track. It's keeping you organized, and it's keeping you efficient, I'm sure. Yeah. So continue on to at the end of that.
It's a living document, and I feel like I'm changing it every job. I'm just like, that number's not quite what I want it to be. Let's just tweak this a little bit. And I mean, obviously with COVID prices for the material, like I can go in and change all that. So it hasn't been too bad, but I've got my quoting system down where I'm spending about, I can do an entire basement / house in roughly an hour, and then I just need to write it up, which is about another half hour. So about an hour and a half roughly, which isn't too bad. It used to be 3. So
yeah, that's good. Well, listen, one of the and I'll get to you in a minute, Ron, and one of the things I wanted to just mention to everybody out there listening in today is that part of the program that these 3 were participating in, the Scale Up Construction Trades program, which again we're offering in early 2021. Part of that is they get training, they received some grant funding, but they also got some training. We brought in some expert panelists to on specific topics that would address some of these things. So we had brought in a marketer. We had brought in another business owner in renovations who shared with them. And I know, Matt, you've shared with me that you found that very valuable in their quoting and estimating tool and their processes, right? Yes. We brought someone in for health and safety. A number of other ones that we brought in as well that I think all of them were valuable. Some were perhaps a little bit more valuable to one individual than others, but that's part of the construction trades programming that we do to support the participants here. That I just wanted to ensure that the viewers out there were aware of that kind of stuff. So Ron, how about you? What in terms of share with us your processes in terms of estimating and quoting and things like that?
Sure. Yeah. So when I first started out, estimating is probably the most challenging part of the job. You don't want to go, under need to be and losing money, and you don't want to go above where you need to be and then lose the job altogether. So as I started to build the business, I was building those documents. So, okay, this is a standard painting job. So there's a template for that. Okay, this is a standard deck exterior project or a porch. And so I actually go back to my existing estimates and use those documents as templates going forward. Similar to Matt, but maybe not quite as advanced. But it's entering in your areas, your materials, and determining from there is this a fair estimate? I've also talked to other people in the trades, to determine, am I in line with where I need to be? I'm not out there to gauge anyone. I'm out there to make the customer happy and make my business successful. So that the estimating process is ongoing. It's, I haven't found a standard piece of software that is the one size fits all. So I've just been utilizing my own templates, and that's worked out fine so far.
And I think the message here is to really understand your input costs for each job. Most individuals in this industry will understand the input supply costs, the cost of goods sold, the material costs. There are other costs that could be factored in there that they don't always include, and the labor cost being number one, especially if it's only yourself. You sometimes will not include enough labor costs. If you're paying someone else and you've got staff, you're going to include that and you're going to make sure you cover off that cost. But a lot of times individuals will forget to pay themselves or pay themselves enough for the project, the scope of work they're doing. The other one are, in terms of might be, machine, equipment rental, capital asset purchases. You might have to buy some new things. You have to incur for some time delays and things like that. And even the cost of cash flow and carrying, if you've got to buy $5,000 or $10,000 worth of material that you have to pay up front, but you're not going to get paid from the client. Perhaps you got a deposit, but it's a 30, 60, perhaps a 90-day job. You got to be able to carry that. So there's there's the cash carrying costs as well that need to be factored in there, as well as perhaps other costs like permit costs and a number of other things. So Grace and Matt, let me go over to you, because I think this is a very important topic in terms of how do you, what, and I think the message here is processing, making it yourself, making it your own. But Matt and Grace, I'll pass it over to you to see anything you want to offer to that.
Yeah, I'll take this one because this is more my area. But I think one of the main things, because it doesn't just mention estimating, but just with communication, with estimates, and with everything, is just making sure you're staying as organized as possible, what we've kind of hit on before. Because if you don't have a clear picture of what you need to actually do, then you end up wasting a lot of time trying to remember, okay, what did I need to do? Which I'm learning to get better or more organized. So it's a learning process for me. But with estimating, I think similar to Matt, I've created kind of a spreadsheet that can automate as much as possible what we usually have to do for estimates. And I think a big thing is just, for one, is having kind of standardized costs as much as you can, for different things. In some ways, our business is a bit more straightforward than, say, if you're doing a basement or something, because there's less variables involved. But having kind of some standardized costs, like, for example, something that we don't usually do that we sometimes do is blocking. And so knowing, okay, you know what, it's going to cost us about this much per post. And so we'll that way we know it's $30 a post. And then we just add, okay, this many posts, it's easy. And just, even if it's some jobs that might be a little bit more, some jobs that might be a little bit less, as long as you're kind of getting the average, that kind of helps you out to streamline things a bit. And I think one thing that really helped us was deciding and realizing what was necessary for each estimate, and eliminating things that are not actually necessary. Like when we first started out, we were doing a detailed layout for everyone, for every estimate we did. And it took way longer than we needed it to. And what we realized was, we don't need to actually give them that layout. What we say instead is, okay, if you decide to go with us, we'll send you a layout. But until they actually want to go with us, to do that layout was actually costing us time and money that we didn't have. And so seeing, okay, what things am I doing that I don't actually need to do until the customer actually wants to go with me? And that's when they need that kind of higher level of detail. Kind of what level of detail do I need to be in my quotes in order to streamline them as much as possible.
And I want to add to it in that I think as new business owners, you tend to not have the confidence to charge at least for us, we felt shy maybe about charging a certain amount. Like, Matt has a Dutch background. I have a Chinese background. We are very conscious about money and conscious about not overcharging people and sometimes even undercharging people. And so really learning and growing in the area of like, this is my worth, and therefore if customers want to go with us, this is a business. So if put the price out there and you are happy with it, and you get us to come and do your railing, then we're both happy. But to charge below our worth really is costing you more than just the money. It's costing you your time with your family. Like, all of those things is part of what you need to put into your estimate as well.
Yeah.
And for us this year, one of the things that we had to adjust again is our traveling cost, because we were charging so little for traveling costs. We were willing to go to Kitchener and charge so little. And I'm like, time actually costs a lot. We're a small team. We can't afford to. That's also another thing that we did. We don't go generally to homes to do estimate. We get them to send us their layout. And that way we save that time, because there are only so much we can do, and we have to choose what are the more important things to serve our customers in, and then what are some things that they can help us with to also lower their cost. Because otherwise, traveling time is not free. The money has to come from somewhere. So including all of that also in your estimating, essentially.
Yeah, well said. I mean, you're in business to make profits. This is a for-profit business that you're in, and there's no shame in making profits. I mean, I always say you're not a charity. I mean, if you want to do something for charity and give of your time and your business, that's completely up to you. And there's a role for that. But business is for profit, and there's no shame in profit. But one of the themes I sort of got from as each one of you were answering there is, there's nothing like experience, right? And you're quoting through your experience and your processes for each one of you. They've evolved. I mean, from and they're working live documents, like Matt said. Every time you're updating them, you're making them more current and all those kind of things. On that note, have you ever experienced a customer situation where you underbid or underquoted, and you got into the job? And Matt, I'll direct this one to you. Have you ever got into that job and found, oh my goodness, I underquoted on this. I did. How did you handle it? And how did that, we all say, oh, we learned from it, and sure you do. But share with us your experience that way, if you have actually smiling and
luckily it was kind of back when I was still working full time. So it was easier to swallow, because it was basically just my time, which was nice. But yeah, you start thinking like, oh no, where's all the money going? Like, there's not enough. I didn't put enough money into like labor hours, and like I've luckily never been out for material. It seems my times that I was out, it seemed to be more for labor, which was nice. So, you just kind of end up making less. But luckily, like I said, it was before I kind of got on to do it officially as what I do. So,
yeah. How about you, Ron? Any experience that way?
Absolutely. And here's my standard response. When I present a potential customer with a quote, I make sure they understand this is based on, us not uncovering something unexpected when I tear this open. Because if I do, that's going to change the estimate. So I think, again, setting expectations and being transparent, having that conversation before you even get into the project is critical, because it's a lot more difficult to have that conversation when you're halfway through the job and you're like, oh boy, I'm really going to take a bath on this, because there's so much more involved. And I actually ran into this on a recent project where on the surface, it looked like it was pretty straightforward. And then you started to peel back the layers of the onion, and it was like, it's all rotten. It's all ruined. So I made sure that I had a conversation with the customer right away, and I said, listen, you can see that this is not what we expected, and it's going to double the amount of time it will take to complete the job. They said, no problem. There was no issue. So they weren't holding me to my estimate because I had the conversation right from the outset. If everything is fine, then this is how long this will take. If there's further repair to do below the surface, then it's not going to be exactly what's been proposed in this estimate. And most people understand that. Most people are reasonable when it comes right down to it. The customer isn't there to try to take advantage of us. They want good work done. And it's not really a great relationship if they're like, well, too bad, you gave us the quote, so you're on your own, when they can clearly see that there was more at play underneath the surface.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all great insight, and thank you for the questions coming in online as well. I'm just going to read a couple more. Your pay versus pricing from Anne. She says, again, I guess the question there is, are you embedding your own pay? Like, is there a specific profit margin that you're building into this job? I assume there is. I see Matt nodding his head. Grace, how about, is there a certain profit margin, or you factor in your pay?
I think we kind of, a bit of a percentage,
Okay.
we definitely, because you have to think of not just the straight pay, you have to think of some of the overhead costs and things like that. And so we do have a kind of, this is what we're actually pretty much paid, but we have to charge a bit of a premium to make sure that all of the extra costs essentially, and sometimes, who knows, you hit traffic or whatever, because we do a lot of jobs out of town and such too. So we do have a bit of a premium on there compared to what we have. And because also when we get employees, there's more than just the hourly rate you're paying your employee. There's CPP, there's EI, there's all those things as well. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's great. Percentages works, whatever it is per job, you got to ensure that you build that in and it's not forgotten. I'm sure you do. A couple other questions. Do you request deposits? I'm sure each and every one of you do. I see you nodding your head. I would not recommend doing any work without a deposit from the client. Paul says, amazing. Thank you, everyone. I want your spreadsheets. I'm not sure about that, but I think the spreadsheets are something that you develop and model after your own processes and charts. Anyways, the rest. So and then there's a couple other comments there about thank you and some other stuff from online. So thank you everyone online. If you have any more, I can take a few more, but in the event of time, we got about another 12 minutes going on here. I just want to go around the horn. I've got some questions, and it's more about your sharing your entrepreneurship and this is Small Business Week. We're here to celebrate small business. Small business is such an important cog in the economy of the London economy, the Ontario economy, the Canadian economy, and those kind of things. And I think we need to celebrate it. And I always tell people that even a business of one person, like Ron Funnel, Unfinished Business, is one person. He is the sole proprietor. Matt has several employees. Grace and Matt are in a family business where there's 4 people involved. You're all important. You're all relevant. Each business has created jobs. You're contributing to the local economy. You're supporting local suppliers. You're filling up your vehicles with gas. You're buying marketing and all that stuff. So the contributions and how it just supports overall the local economy, not just within the construction trades. I mean, I know many of you have you've bought T-shirts and things and getting your vehicles wrapped and all that kind of stuff. And it's such a huge part of supporting small business across London and locally. And thank you for that. So let me ask, I'm going to do a little bit of some quick questions around the horn here. So let's go with Grace and Matt. Tell us or share with us what is a major obstacle that you faced in your the first few years of business, and how did you overcome it?
He's going to take this one.
Working with a spouse. Don't is that the answer?
Well, actually,
that is a challenge for many too.
They say not to start a business with your spouse and not to do business with family, and I do both. So I'm either smart or a really big idiot. It's
a fine line between the two.
Yeah, you gotta be a little bit crazy. But I think that's been one of our biggest challenges, has been just kind of working through some of the things with working with family. This wasn't us coming into my dad's business. This was us all starting together a business and starting from the ground up. And we have a lot of different ideas. And even just the two of us have a lot of different ideas of how to do things. And so learning how to give and take in that, and learning how to honor the other person, even when you completely disagree with them, and how they want to do something or something like that is something that has been a great learning experience. And it actually, in some ways, it's a great learning experience, not just for business, but for life. And so that's probably our biggest challenge, is that, and we've overcome some of it, but it's a constant thing where we're going to be continually learning and growing. And it's been a really interesting but good
well, like any business relationships amongst partners or shareholders, related or unrelated, communication is the key. There will be conflict, there will be disagreements, but communication is the key to success, and really identifying strengths and playing to those strengths of each shareholder and partner. So thanks for sharing that, Matt. Matt from Caribou Building, I know you've got a couple young ones and a family. How do you maintain a healthy work-life balance? I mean, it's got to be hard working at night, doing quotes, working during the day, up and early, managing staff. You've got young ones and perhaps, school and all sorts of stuff. And share with us that. How do you maintain that healthy work-life balance?
So yeah, that's a fun one. So just as like an overview, like normally, so my day usually starts at like 5 a.m. I get up, and then we usually, feed my son, and then he's off to daycare at about 9. So usually from about 7 to 8, or 7 to 9, sorry, I'm doing Caribou stuff until I have to drop him off. So whether that's going to site, getting the guys set up, and then like whether picking stuff up, making sure everybody's good to go, dealing with sub trades, it's all done. I can kind of do that little bit of stuff right there. And then afterwards, after work, you come home, eat, and then usually it's a couple hours after dinner.
Okay.
And then it's usually good to go, but it's not been too bad. And my weekends are pretty much free, so it's not so bad.
Well, that's good. So, I mean, it's important in maintaining healthy work-life balance. I mean, you can either, as someone once said to me, you can work to live or you can live to work. I mean, you think about why you're working, and you're working for family. You're working to, obviously put a roof over your heads and provide for your family and those kind of things. But the time spent with your family is just as important as the time spent with your business. And sometimes, and it is easy to lose sight of that, and there will be times in the business cycle where you have to dedicate extra time and dedicate more hours, weekends or something to your business. But it's also critically and equally important, if not more so important, to ensure that you balance that out and equally divide it with your family life, and give your family and your spouse and children the same amount of time. And that's not easy. That can be challenging at all. So thanks, Jack, for sharing that. Ron, let me ask you, where do you find your inspiration? What motivates you to get up every morning, and what inspires you to do what you do?
I love what I do, and every day is different. So that in itself is the motivation. It's like going into a new workplace every day, even if I'm at that job site for a couple of weeks. I love to learn. I've always been a lifelong learner. The reason I started Unfinished Business is because I've always had a passion in doing renovation work and repairs and woodworking. I spend a lot of time in my shop which is where I am right now. And I like to jump out of my comfort zone to a degree. But as I said earlier, no, I do know what my limitations are. But I'm also not afraid to try something new. And I've done that a few times this summer. On the family side of things, I'm in a bit of a different position because our kids are adults and on their own. But communication is still incredibly important with your partner. And my fiance and I share a calendar. That's how she knows where I am, what my job site is for the week. There's complete transparency there. And then, when I come in at the end of the day, we've already got something to talk about. So how was that job in Woodstock? Is it working out as well as you thought that it would? So just as much as you're being transparent with your customers, be transparent with your family. And, years ago, a very smart person told me you have 3 priorities in your life. You have your health, your family, and your career. And they should always be in that order. Your health, your family, your career. You've got to take care of yourself so you can take care of your family. And yes, you do need the career so you have the money to do those other things. People often, lose sight of that, and they can get too caught up in their career or get too caught up in their work, and their family is suddenly secondary. And that's not the way that it should be.
Okay, well said. Grace, let me ask you this. What as you forge ahead in your business, and your business is only a few years old now, what excites you when you look towards the future now for Ontario Deck Railing? What excites you?
I think continued learning and how do we build on what we already have sustainably now that we have a third person in our family. Because I think you want the business that you start, you want to not have it take over your life, essentially. It will in some seasons, but it cannot be all the time. And so I think we're learning that, and to keep it sustainable, and to answer the question of how big do we want this business to grow? Does it always have to be say 20-30% increase year upon year? Is that a sustainable growth? And so I think for us, the huge thing that is exciting has really come from this year as well, because this year has been exponential for us. And to know that we can do so much with the few of us without hiring is fantastic. And then how far can we still push with just a few of us? And how many do we need to hire? Do we need to hire that many people? And is that something that we want to move towards? How are we talking about a multi-million-dollar company that we want to build, or do we want to keep it small? Those questions, I think, are quite exciting for me, because for one, we know that this business model works. And so then how can we do it well, and how can we do it sustainably and not make the business our master, instead make it to serve us and how we want to live our lives. And one of the reasons we started this business was because it's a seasonal business. And so we have time to go and visit my family in Malaysia, because that's where I'm from. And so this business serves us that way. That's one of the many ways it serves us. And it also makes us money, and all of those things. And so I think that's what continues to excite me.
Oh, well said.
I think
last comment, and just because it's coming on 6 o'clock, but listen, we're here to salute small businesses, and this being Small Business Week, and Small Business Week is about recognizing the importance of people like yourselves, entrepreneurs, business owners, people that have taken that leap of faith and that risk, and are on that journey today. And we're here to celebrate you. So I hope each one of you take the time to celebrate what you've accomplished this far Whether that's a glass of wine with loved ones, or you're sharing a lunch or a beer with some of your coworkers, all abiding by COVID restrictions, of course. But listen, celebrating small business, celebrating business owners and entrepreneurs like yourself. I don't think I can say anything more, but thank you to you guys. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your journeys today, and thank you to everyone for joining us. And please do join us again for the rest of this week. We are hosting these panel discussions on various business industries and programs. And tomorrow is our food and beverage program, and that is at 2:30. All the information is on our website. So that being said, I wish everybody a fond adieu, a good evening, and thank you to Matt Taker from Caribou Building, Ron Funnell from Unfinished Business, and Grayson Stelpstra from Ontario Deck Railing Limited. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.